It's 2025, a new year, and the perfect time to turn your business dreams into reality. Maybe you've been tossing around a great idea, but haven't acted yet. Well, Shopify is how you're going to make it happen. Shopify makes it simple to create your brand, open for business, and make your first sale. With thousands of customizable templates, you don't need coding or design skills. Just drag, drop, and go. Plus, Shopify's social media tools help you connect all your channels and create shoppable posts so you can sell everywhere your customers scroll. Managing your business is easy too. From shipping to taxes to payments, Shopify handles the details on a single dashboard, letting you focus on what really matters: growing your business. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it.
Ryan Seacrest here. When you have a busy schedule, it's important to maximize your downtime. One of the best ways to do that is by going to ChumbaCasino.com. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino games like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire that you can play for free for a chance to redeem some serious prizes. So hop on to ChumbaCasino.com now and live the Chumba life. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Well, hello. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. So, if you are new to the show, let me tell you what we are about. So, this is the web series where we like to talk that real talk about things that are important to us, right? So, we tend to focus on certain topics. We tend to focus on things in education, employment, physical health, mental health. If you search our video library, we have topics on divorce. We have topics about deafness. We even talk about homeschooling, right? So we talk about a variety of different topics in our general but narrow scope, since we are a tutoring company. But any topic that we bring forth to you, we like to look at things through an educational lens, through an informational lens. And we here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services believe that people's life stories, people's experiences are teaching tools, right? So you can always learn from somebody's experience, because I'm not sure who said it, but experience is the best teacher. I'm not sure who quoted that, but there you go. There you have it. So let's get into the episode. And for those of you who already know who we are, welcome back. Welcome back. So let's get into it. So the name of this episode is Living with a Disability Part 6. So we are already at Part 6. So this topic has been ongoing for some time. And obviously there's a parts 1 through 5, if you haven't picked that up. If you check out our video library, wherever you are watching this right now, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or what's the other one, YouTube, check out our video library, check out our other videos. You will see parts 1 through 5. And the reason why you are seeing this topic yet again is because we believe that there is more than one way to see a single topic. So we like to look at things from different points of view, from multiple perspectives, from multiple different people. So you will see the same topic come up over and over again, because there's more than one experience that falls under a single umbrella. So with that said, we are already at Part 6 of Living with Disability, and the disability of discussion is, once again, ADHD, which stands for Attention Deficit hyperactivity disorder. So when I put out the call for this topic, I don't know what happened, but the floodgates open and I took as much in as I could. So you are seeing this topic yet again, ADHD. So again, do not be alarmed. We do like to repeat topics here. And I have a guest with me who is going to be on the hot seat today. And her name is a long one. So let me take my time and say this. So her name is Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh, right? So she got that PhD, and she is going to join me on Hot Topics today. So with that said, let me tell you about who she is. I'm just going to get right to it. I'm not going to delay any further. So let's introduce the guest today. So who is Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh? Let me tell you who she is. So she is a family medicine physician, clinical medical director, and chief medical officer. She is also the founder of Overachieve Life Coaching, which is a company designed to help physicians and medical students create systems that are so simple that even someone with ADHD can implement. Ooh, can implement via group coaching. For the past decade prior to discovering life and ADHD coaching, she was someone that had 200 charts open and graveyard of unfinished projects. But all that has now changed. She is now on a mission to help physicians and medical students create systems that support their zone of genius and reclaim 5 to 10 hours per week of their personal life. Her clients learn to leave work at work. She is happily married and has a 3-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. She enjoys travel, painting, Zumba, yoga, Nidra meditation, and exploring different cultures. So let me bring Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh to the stage right now. Hi, doctor. How you doing today?
I am so excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have you here. This is awesome. So thank you for coming to Hot Topics and thank you for braving the hot seat today. I look forward to having this discussion with you. So, with that said, I think I'm just going to hand you over the baton and I'm just going to let you take control of this train, this mad train here. So, if you could go ahead and tell the viewers about your story, your life story living with ADHD.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity to share how ADHD presented in my life. And maybe this will be a way that somebody else might relate to what I'm saying, and it might help them to identify whether they might have ADHD or ways to support either their son or their friends who might have ADHD, or maybe to even recognize it. So, honestly, when I first got diagnosed, I was a first year medical student, and I was a little surprised with the diagnosis because everybody else always made it sound like ADHD was something that usually was diagnosed as a child, and usually it was because you were super hyperactive and you couldn't concentrate, and maybe your grades were not kind of high. But I think my story is not unique in the sense that, I come from immigrant parents, and I learned English as a second language at the age of 10. My parents were migrant workers. They're from Mexico, and they would get permission to come to the States, either to California or to Washington State, and they would pick produce. And so then we would go back, and, it was back and forth. We did that for a couple of years. I was actually born in Texas one day on the way back. And so even though I was a U.S. citizen, like I said, I grew up in Mexico till I was 10. After my mom had her third kid, I'm the oldest. She and my dad was working at that time in Houston in construction, and she said, "Okay, I feel like a stay-at-home mom, a single parent type of thing, and because I don't have all the help, I we need to all kind of be together." So that's when they decided to move to Mission, Texas, which is was only 1 hour away from my original place of where I was living. But of course, it was like a lifetime for me, or a whole different world of experience. And I started to learn English as a second language. I was a couple of grades behind because, again, I didn't know English. Eventually, I caught up. If you ask if the stuff was always there for ADHD, I guess you could say it was, because I remember my dad having to come and sit in the classroom because I was distracting everybody. Um, so I would finish my work because I enjoyed and I was curious. But then the more work they gave me, the more I would complete. And I wouldn't like, then I would be a social butterfly. I would go and talk to everybody and I would distract everybody. And so what they ended up doing, they just kept skipping me grades. Like I would do a grade for 6 weeks and then they would skip me another one and then another one. Eventually I caught up to where I needed to be. And then I ended up graduating number 7 in my class of 1,000 people. And then I had a scholarship to go to St. Mary's University in San Antonio, and I actually got it for business. I didn't think I wanted to travel the world. I thought if I studied international business, then that would be a way for me to do that. But I wasn't even in the one semester in that major, and then I switched um, to biochemistry because I wanted to become a doctor. And so, because I noticed that several of my classmates who in my eyes were smarter than me and didn't seem to have such a hard time taking tests, I saw that they weren't really
How to have fun, anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com. VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Struggling, but somehow they weren't matching into medical school. They weren't being accepted. And so I decided at that point to become a science teacher as a backup, just so that I could do something and still teach and continue to learn while I continue to level up my application so that one day hopefully I would get accepted. To my surprise, I was accepted on the first try. I was accepted, I wouldn't say under probation, but in the sense where I had to do 6 weeks before I actually started with all the medical school students. And there was a group of us, I think there was like 20 or 30 of us, who they gave us special consideration and we had to do this little boot camp beforehand. And so I got very close to those people beforehand. And one of those ended up being my roommate. And she told me that's how she told me. She's like, Diana, I see you studying all the time, maybe 80 to 100 hours a week. And I don't know if it's because you're stressed or you're anxious or you're worried or you have all this pressure of wanting to do like so well for your family because you're the first one to go to college and the first one to go to med school, that you feeling like you can't fail at this because then you're letting everybody down. She's like, I don't know if that is causing you to not perform as well or if there's something else going on. And so that's how my diagnosis came about. But if you look back in high school, I was running like 10 miles a day because I was in the cross country team. So that was probably why I was doing so well academically. That was the way for the dopamine to support me. And then once I got to college, I wasn't really running. You know, I was using food as a means to get dopamine. Now I understand it. At then I didn't. And of course, coffee and, you know, you name it. And I didn't, nobody ever told me in college that I might have ADHD. I just thought that was just the norm, you know? And so I the systems that I was using, overstudying, ended up not being enough for the amount of requirement that I needed when I got to medical school. And so now that I understand ADHD, it is not uncommon for uh, females specifically to get diagnosed later on in life, right? Whenever they have a requirement, like maybe now they get to college, or maybe now they got to law school, or they got to pharmaceutical school or medical school or some higher level education, they get challenged. Or maybe they have the birth of their first child that now requires their executive function to and organization skills and emotional regulation skills to be like top level. Or maybe they get promoted, like all of a sudden they become the CEO or something of a company, or a lead. And so females tend to be, for the most part, before they hit their periods, they tend to be the daydream. Like they can be a little active, but then after their periods, they're kind of the daydreamers. So they're there, they're looking at you, they're talking to you, but it's like they're in a thousand places. Like you ask him, you're like, you were just having a conversation with me, weren't you paying attention? And you're like, you were. And that's the thing. They have the inattentive type, and sometimes they can have a combination of it. And so with ADHD, like, you have the best intentions. Like there's only two types of time, like now and not now. And so if you don't put it in your calendar to do it later, if it wasn't meant to be now, it's like out of sight, out of mind, and you're not going to, you might miss it. Or that's why we forget sometimes to pay bills, or sometimes we forget like birthdays. Not trying to excuse us with ADHD, but I'm just trying to explain to you why it can be so frustrating for other people that we don't remember things, or we tell you something's going to take so long, it actually takes way longer than we expected, because we don't have that time awareness, and we don't realize that there's multiple steps that need to happen. And sometimes, we tend to just be in our heads. Like we have an inner critic that tries to help us survive, but it's not the best. It keeps telling us, oh, that's not good enough, that's not good enough, that's not good enough. And that's why we need a deadline sometimes, so that we can finally turn something in. Otherwise, it won't happen. Like we feel like, oh, we have tons of time, even though it's not tons of time, and the deadline always sneaks up. And so we'll misplace things. And then sometimes we feel like we can't turn our brain off, or we have 10,000 ideas and nothing gets completed. And so being aware of all these things are important, because then you learn how to create your systems to help you remember things that you want to, either by planning, or by delegating a task, or by using timers. There's different ways for that.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Exercise and meditation, of course, are also a healthy way of being able to increase your focus and your energy level as well.
Thank you so much for that. That was a lot to take in there. All right. So you brought up that you're an immigrant, or you come from immigrant parents, since you were born here. So I'm wondering what does, in terms of when you found out you had ADHD, or your understanding about it, I'm wondering, did your parents, how am I trying to phrase it? So I wonder, because you come from immigrant parents, did they look at your disorder in a particular way? I don't know if you understand what I'm
Yes.
asking.
Yes, I
Okay.
understand what you're asking. Well,
Okay.
honestly, like my parents didn't even realize what ADHD was, right? Like they didn't make it mean anything. Like my mom was like, "Oh, okay, is that why you forget things?" And I said, "Well, you can take this medication." She's like, "Okay, you better take that." So like they didn't make it mean anything. And again, this is genetic. And and the reason I bring up immigrants is because if you can imagine, it takes some guts, right, for parents or people to decide, I'm going to uproot my family from whatever I know is comfortable and safe for me and go to somewhere else for a better opportunity. You not even knowing the language, not even knowing how it's going to come out, right? And so you could imagine that immigrants tend to probably have ADHD because they're adventurous, they're think outside the box, they're willing to take chances, they're risk takers, right? So that's why I brought that up, because it is not unlikely that immigrants tend to have ADHD because they have that daring personality. And I've noticed that in several of my clients. But my parents did not make it mean anything. However, I made it mean everything. In my mind, having ADHD meant, oh my God, I'm broken. Oh my God, I'm imperfect. Oh my God, I'm a hot mess. I'm never going to make anything of myself. I cannot let anybody know I have ADHD. Um, so I think prior to February of last year, I had shared with a whole but 5 people like that I had ADHD, because in my mind, like having ADHD meant um, I couldn't function, that that nobody should know that I somehow, uh, I don't know, I think I was thinking in my head that I was an imposter and somehow they had accidentally let me in here and they shouldn't know that I was really a hot mess. Like that was what my brain kept telling me. But since the diagnosis, I've done a lot of work and I now have come to realize that ADHD can be a double-edged sword, meaning if you have it and don't treat it, like you can set yourself up for failure, because again, you might lead to arguments with because you forgot something or you weren't paying attention and your significant other things that you don't care but you do, right? Or you forget to pay bills and so they might, kick you out of your apartment, or they might repossess your car or something, right? Or you might end up like saying things you didn't mean to because you were too impulsive, right? And it is not unlikely, unfortunately, that some people end up using alcohol and using cocaine or using food, like sugary food, uh, to try to give themselves that dopamine. So for me, the diagnosis of ADHD changed me in the sense that I felt embarrassed, I felt ashamed. But with the work that I've done on myself, now I've come to realize that ADHD is whatever I want it to be. Like it could be a disability or it could be my superpower. And that it was in me understanding how I think and how I function, that I could then set up those systems to support the way I do things so that I don't make it be a thing. For example, I hated writing notes. I mean, you said it in my introduction. I wasn't lying that 20 to 300 notes were the norm, and that seems like a lot. But the thing is, when you see about 20 patients a day, it can quickly add up, right? And the thing was that I didn't have a time awareness. So if I was in the room for 5 minutes or I was in the room for an hour, in my mind, it was probably just 10 minutes. Like I couldn't tell at all. And so you could imagine if I left my heart and soul in that encounter and it went amazing, why would I then want to turn around and like write a note about it? To me, that was painful. Like, why wasn't somebody writing all the notes while I was there? Why wasn't somebody taking those notes, right? And so you could imagine it was a love-hate relationship for me because I love my patients, but I hated the administrative part of it. With time, I learned that it was just a diagnosis. It wasn't any different from high blood pressure, from diabetes, from cancer, from whatever, right? And that I wouldn't take like my patients medications away on the weekend. Like I wouldn't tell them, okay, only take it Monday through Friday, you don't need it on the weekends, like they usually tend to say for people with ADHD. And the thing is, I was never judgmental towards my patients. I was just judgmental towards me, towards myself. And so my parents never made it mean anything. It was just me making it mean everything. But now that I have realized that it's just a diagnosis, and the more that I know about it, the more I'm curious about it, the more I can support myself, and that it is genetic, and that it's funny, but it doesn't matter what ethnicities or what age people are. In my course right now, I have doctors that are all specialties. You name it, from surgeon to like OBGYNs, family medicines, endocrinologists. You name all the specialties, they're my clients. And it doesn't matter whether they're 30 or 65. I actually have people that are a little bit older than me. And when they're talking and explaining themselves, like, I just smile because I complete their sentences, because we all have the same similar type of brain. I mean, it's kind of like a spectrum, but I know where they're going to go with that because my brain has gone there with it. And it's funny because it almost seems like anybody else who doesn't have ADHD, they're like, what the hell? How did they get to that? Because it almost seems like we go from A to C to F to G to like whatever. But somebody with ADHD like totally understands, because we understand that sometimes we have to try it 10 times until we get it right, and we don't make it mean anything because that's just the way it's been. And so we're great problem solvers. And so for me, family medicine is perfect because I never know what's going to come through the door. So it keeps it entertaining. It doesn't keep it boring. So my family, to answer your question in the long-winded answer like I always give, didn't mind. They were like, good, I'm glad they have a name for that. I take your meds, and that was it. But for me, like I said, I was in my head.
So there's definitely a lot when it comes to ADHD in terms of how people with the disorder understand their social situations, how they solve problems, how they control their emotions. So there's a lot to it. So now, what made you decide to go see a doctor to seek a diagnosis? I would imagine there was a point where you realized, okay, I need to talk to a doctor. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So like I said, it was pointed out to me that I was spending too much time on certain tasks, and they weren't sure if that was representing, like they weren't sure if because I was having so much anxiety, I couldn't retain things, or why was I so forgetful, or was I depressed, because at that time my dad had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. So they weren't sure if all this was normal given the diagnosis of my dad or what. And so when I went and I got evaluated, they did a test that it's a neuro evaluation, which was like an 8 or 10-hour test. There's easier ways to do it, just like you do screening tests. Like there's an adult ADHD self-reported scale that you can do, which is like 18 questions. But my medical school wanted to make sure that they had that type of evaluation, because if I was going to be taking a controlled substance, they had to make sure they knew what I was, what was going on, and then to get tutors and all that. So I get diagnosed, I get the medication, and then medical school takes me 5 years to complete. Usually it should take you 4. But again, because my father was diagnosed with cancer, I ended up splitting my first year into 2, kind of like going part-time. And then after my father passed away during my second year, that's when I, went full-time after that. And
it is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.
Residency takes another 3 years. So at the end of my residency, in the student clinic I was at, they told me, hey, now you're a physician. You need to go get like another psychiatrist. Like, this is just a student clinic. You need to get your own psychiatrist. So when I did that, unfortunately, I didn't do my research. I didn't realize that some psychiatrists were not comfortable with treating adult ADHD. And so I picked a random psych person, thinking that, I would be okay, since it is Houston. It is like there's thousands of doctors. In any corner you could find a doctor almost, right? But unfortunately, the encounter I had when I walked in the room was not a pleasant one. It lasted no more than 2 minutes, and I was told, hey, you're a physician. You should know better. You outgrow ADHD. You shouldn't be on meds. And like, the physician didn't even want to look at my paperwork or my medications or anything. He just walked out. And so that kind of crushed me. And I just told myself, suck it up, buttercup. Like, maybe you don't need this anymore. Maybe I do outgrow it. I don't know. And so for 10 years, I neglected my diagnosis. And of course, the pandemic hits, and me charting all these hours outside of work, like 20 hours unpaid outside of work, and having to manage my stress level, having to manage my toddlers. Um, it got I was very irritated. I was very frustrated. I was very short, and I didn't even realize I was burning out. Like, I just thought, it was life, like it was meant to be because of all the duties I had going on. Um, and then I was listening to a podcast about um, doctors who were life coaches. I never had heard about life coaches, but one of those physicians, her name is Dr. Sunny Smith, has a program called Empowering Women Physicians. I ended up listening to that, and it sounded like a good idea to join since it provided continuing medical education credits. And during there, that's when I brought up the fact that I had ADHD. We normalized the situation. It was life-changing for me. And then I started to actually seek out ADHD coaches so that I could understand myself more. And reading Dr. Hollowell's 2.0 book and different things like that. And everywhere I looked, I couldn't see people like myself, like who were physicians who were life coaches, or who had ADHD, who were targeting ADHD physicians. And so I decided that I should try to fill that void so that no other person could ever feel like they were less of. Like, my brain kept telling me that I was not good enough as a mom or as a physician or as a wife or as a daughter. Like, it kept telling me all these things. And so I ended up, again, walking towards understanding ADHD more. And I was doing one webinar, or through the Academy of Family Physicians, the American Academy of Family Physicians, and they had a 2-hour seminar on ADHD in adults. And usually those webinars are like 30 minutes to 40 minutes at the most, and they have multiple. And here was a whole 2 hour on it. So I decided to go, and everything they were talking about, I was just blown away by the characteristics and all the stuff that they were saying. They were saying people with ADHD who are not treated can have a life expectancy of, we might die like 10 to 21 years earlier compared to somebody who doesn't have ADHD, because the other people are not as impulsive. They're not speeding everywhere because they do not have any time awareness. And like, I think that was the turning point for me that got me to snap it, to like realize what was I doing. Like, I drive my kids an hour every day, like 30 minutes each way to and from work, so I can leave them at the daycare. And I said, okay, if something happens to me, it's not just going to happen to me. It might happen to them as well because they're in the car with me. And so that was what got me to go in again to go seek a different psychiatrist opinion 10 years after I had stopped taking the medications. And that's been, I think that was I started doing that in December. So it's been over a year that I've been on medications now, and it's been life changing. Honestly, when the medication works, it's amazing. 80 to 90% of people, the medication works for them. Unfortunately, the medications are not going to set up the systems, and that's where coaching and therapy and reading books and trial and error comes in. But the medications will be the fastest way to get you there. Unfortunately, not everybody can um, tolerate them. You know, some people get like their heart rate beating too fast, or they uh, are not able to sleep, or some people just can't tolerate them. So if they can't, then they need to find other ways like exercise and meditation and low carb diets to help them. So the reason why I seeked the second time around to start again a year ago was because I've always felt like I didn't have enough time. I always felt like I was burned out. I always felt so irritated and short fused on things that I shouldn't have been mad. They were like a big deal. And I always felt like I was just not enough. And I wanted to make sure that I showed up in the best way possible, whether it was depression or anxiety or whatever it was. I wanted to put the oxygen on myself first so that I could turn around and put the oxygen on everybody else, right? So that I could help my clients, I could help my patients, I could help my family. If I wasn't okay, then you can't you can't give, right, from something you don't have. You can't give water from an empty glass. You can try and try, but there's nothing to give. And so yeah, so that's how I ended up deciding to go the second time. I felt too stressed. I felt like I couldn't accomplish, I couldn't be who I wanted to be. I didn't feel like I was um fulfilling myself or aligned with what my purpose was.
That's so you turned your own life around pretty much, with that doctor that, said, that put you down and say, you should know better. You're a physician. And and while a lot of time passed, you had that thought in your head until someone else came along and said, no, it's more than that. So you you didn't let that that one doctor, well, I mean, it did keep you down,
Yes.
what he said, but eventually like someone else came and said, no, that it's not that.
Yes, that's what's important. If they take anything away from today's talk, is that if there's something that you feel like is not right with you, or maybe it's just not ideal how you would want it to be, like, go get help. And if the first doctor or the first therapist or the first coach is not able to answer what you need, go get a second, third, fourth opinion. It doesn't matter, because I wish in that moment in time I had enough confidence to say, you don't know me. You just walked in. You just met me for 5 minutes. Like, you don't know my story. You don't know how hard it is for me to be me, right? But the thing is, we don't know what we don't know. Now I can say that, right? Because now I have come to realize that that happened maybe needed to happen all along, because now I can turn around and say, hey, empower yourself. Don't just stay in victim mode. Like, don't let it just be. Realize that for anything that you want from life, it's always how you're thinking about it. If you're thinking, no, well, I've never been somebody who's been organized, that sounds like a matter of fact thought, but it's not a matter of fact thought. It's a thought that you're choosing to think, and therefore it's not allowing your brain to ask yourself, well, how can I do organization my own way, right? That's a very different question versus you just stating, well, I always been somebody who's messy, or I always been somebody who's disorganized, right? And so it's the same thing. Like if we think, oh, well, I've never done well at school. And again, like who is to say you have to do well at school? Like some of the most important people like never had a college degree, right? So it's again, like you said earlier, the school of life, right? Like what have you learned? What are you willing to try? How uncomfortable are you willing to be to get to your dreams? And instead of asking yourself, um, you know, things are facts, right? So let's say you have $10,000 in the bank, and it's always your thoughts. One person might say, "Oh my God, that's insane. I used to have 200,000. That means I spent it all. I'm doing really bad." Another person might think, "Oh, that's amazing. I used to have only 1,000. Look, I'm doing so well." So the fact is that the money piece is neutral. It doesn't mean good or bad. It's just what it is. But it's always your thought about that statement that gets you to get one way or another. If you have a mindset that is going to limit you, that you're always going to say, well, oh, well, I'm never going to lose weight. That's just the way it's been. Well, of course, you're never going to lose weight. Your brain is going to focus on what you wanted to focus on. It's going to give you all the evidence. But if you ask yourself a different question, if you ask yourself, how can I lose weight for the last time? All of a sudden, your brain starts to think of possibilities on how to do that. So it's so important and to realize, when I learn that ADHD, the way we process questions, if you ask me something today, I'll answer with how I'm feeling about it. If you ask me the same question tomorrow, I might answer about how I'm thinking about it. And you might be confused. You're like, but you said yesterday. And I'll be like, yeah, that was yesterday. Now if you ask somebody who doesn't have ADHD, it doesn't matter what day or what year that question, they're always going to give you the exact same answer. And so you can see how that might be a little confusing for partners if they don't have ADHD and they don't understand, because half of the time we don't even understand that that was going on until somebody taught that to me. A coach, ADHD coach, taught that to me and told me, hey, there's a thing called emotional dysregulation, and that's really tied to your energy level and tied to how many decisions you have to make today or you made today. And that makes sense why, if I call you at 7 in the morning, you're going to ask me, hey, do you want a margarita? I'm going to tell you no, because hopefully I've slept and I have a wired brain that's fully charged, right? But if you call me at 7 p.m. when I've already used all my executive function capacity and my emotional capacity, I'm going to say, yes, please bring it over, right? And so you can see how our thinking can get us, like, can be a gift if we don't make it mean anything and we're open to being creative and finding different solutions to problems. Or if we get in our heads and we think it's the worst case scenario, then it could be a double-edged sword.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very fair point that you made there. And thank you for sharing that. Excuse me. All right, so we are winding down. We're coming to the end. So do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share? Any advice that you'd like to impart on our viewers?
Yes. I think if people don't want to plan, right? But if you begin every day with your 3 intentions of what you want to do, if you know where you want to head or what you want to feel, what you want to accomplish, then you have a higher chance of becoming who you want to be, right? But I always say this, sometimes we feel like we're just stuck and we're pedaling, right? We're like full throttle in our bicycle. And there's people that come along and they tell you, get off the bike. And you're like, no, I'm doing a good job here. You're like, but I see you out of breath. Get off the bike. And you're like, no. The thing is that if you don't get off the bike sometimes to reevaluate the situation, that other person that came along, they had a car that they were going to type in your GPS, the coordinates where you wanted to go. You would have been there so much faster, so much easier. Sometimes we are afraid of trying different things because we've always done it a certain way, but you have to realize that our brain is meant to keep us alive, and it might give you thousands of fear signals, but not all of them are true. And you might still have to do things outside of your comfort with fear, but be courageous enough to still do it and show up if you know why you're doing it, right? And so it's important that you listen to people that come along, but more importantly, listen to yourself. If you feel that something's not right for you, or you want your life, you want to turn it in a different path.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Go ask for help. A lot of us don't want to ask for help because we think we're being weak. But when we share whatever we are worried about or ashamed of or embarrassed, all of a sudden we realize it's not as big of a deal as we thought it was. And all of a sudden we have people who support us and can help us. And if they don't know how, they would get us to somebody who can. So they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, and a journey of 1,000 miles does begin with one step. So if you have a task that seems that's too daunting or too big, just ask yourself, what little thing can I do today to get going? Or why am I avoiding this task, right? Because it might be that you're trying to eat the whole elephant at once. You need to take small bites, and you might need to ask for help. You can't always do it by yourself.
Thank you so much for that. That was very great advice. And on that note, let me put up your banner. All right, so you guys, you can find Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh on social media. She's on Instagram, TikTok, and she has a Facebook group. So I encourage you to follow her on all of her social media to learn more about her coaching business and herself. And she has a website where you can learn about her services. It is scrolling below on the screen, but I'll just say it out loud. It is www.adhd-lifecoach.com. So I encourage you to go to her website, learn about her coaching services. She does provide coaching, and also follow her on all of her social media handles. So definitely not just one, but follow her on all of them. And she has a podcast. It is wherever you can hear a podcast. So you could listen to her previous episodes. You could learn more about ADHD, and I don't know if you want to be a guest on her podcast, feel free to reach out. But the link is scrolling below to her podcast. So definitely take a listen to all those episodes, and enjoy and learn. All right. If you could briefly talk about your business. I'm just looking at the time, but briefly tell us about your coaching business.
Sure. Yes. So I've been coaching since July, and have several. I'm already maxed out with private coaching. I am still working full time as a family medicine doctor. My coaching business is kind of like my passion project. The reason why I'm doing it, like I said, is so that I can empower their medical students and other physicians so that they can finally start to live life in their own terms, right? Like they don't have to keep trying to fit in the box, or maybe they don't even know where the box is. And they can learn how to do it their own way using their strengths, but at the same time doing it in a way where they don't give themselves away completely to where they have no energy for themselves, right? And so that's why I say, I know it sounds silly, 5 to 10 hours of personal life, but somebody with ADHD, like I said, we're like unrealistic dreamers sometimes. We think we get bored of sleeping, right? And so we're trying to be here and there and everywhere. And sometimes realizing that you don't have to do all the things that your brain tells you. It's the best thing that you can do all the things, but maybe you shouldn't. And maybe you should decide what you can say no to and what you can say yes to, from a place of not that you're missing out, but from a place of consciously deciding that this is what's the best for you in terms of energy, in terms of spiritual, in terms of, you know, taking care of your time, because sometimes it's not, ADHD does not affect only you, right? But everybody around you. And so it's good that you take care of you so that you can, you know, be managed in more than little pieces of time. That's what my husband says. He's like, I can only manage you in little pieces of time. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So definitely check her out. I'll just put up her banner briefly again. So definitely check her out on social media and visit her online. Her contact information is scrolling below.
And I
Once
do
it, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you. I do have a lot of collaboration posts. So you know, sometimes I go to go support people who have parenting ADHD, they're like kids or different things like that. So it's not, while I only work with physicians and medical students, it doesn't mean that I don't talk about on my TikTok things in general that will can be applied to anything. Like I said, I do have, as a family medicine physician, I do treat people with ADHD. So a lot of those TikTok are geared towards my, you know, my patients in my practice, because obviously I don't, they're not my clients in the private coaching, but I still give all those tips. So don't think that whatever I'm saying is not going to apply to you. We're all human. It doesn't matter. You know, we're all human. And the thing with ADHD, you can do whatever you want. Like if you want to be a fireman, if you want to be a nurse, if you want to be an architect, if you want to be a teacher, like that's the beauty of it. You decide, you have to listen to what your passion is, because then it doesn't feel like work. It feels like an aligned system for you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. Dr. Diana Mercado-Marmarosh, or Marmarosh, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to be here.
And I appreciate this space and everything that you're doing to bring awareness to the community, because this is what we need, because we don't do this enough. We are always on Netflix looking at mindful things, mindless things, but we need to look at mindful things like your podcast and your webinar. So thank you so much for this space.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to place you backstage now. And it is now you and me, guys. So let me get my banner. There it is. All right. And you guys, we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. So wherever you are watching this episode right now, check out our video library for more videos and clips. And don't forget to follow us. So if, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you are watching this on social media, check out our video library for more videos and clips and press that button. So like, follow, subscribe, whatever the button is, press it. press that button. And while you're at it, let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. We definitely would love to hear your thoughts. And our guests especially, please let us know your thoughts. Leave a comment in the chat or in the comment thread. And as a reminder, we are A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our services, our workshops, if you want to know what we're about, if you're interested in seeking tutoring services for yourself or for your child, please check out our website at www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. The information is scrolling below on your screen. And of course, you can also reach out to us on our social media. And please sign up for our email list and or our texting list if you want to learn more about our discounts, our events, anything special that's coming up, or you just want to stay in touch with us. Please sign up for our email list and or texting list. So all the links are also scrolling below to those as well. I encourage you to join those. And I'm just going to share this. Oh, I have a quick comment from one of my dear friends, Jan 6th. I'm going to get this in here. She said, interesting discussion. I've tutored many students who had ADD or ADHD. Although most struggled with the have-tos of school, their adult lives have been satisfying when they got into the career of their choice. All right, thank you, Jan, so much. She's one of my dear friends, and she also was one of my guests on one of our episodes. So it's nice to see her here. So thank you, Jan. I'm glad that you left a comment for us today. All right. And let me just get this final message before we close for the day.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this web series, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Note: we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
Awesome. All right. So thank you for joining us today. I am glad that you came, and I, Gabrielle, hope to see you at the next episode. So thank you so much for joining us. And now, signing off.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply.